They had circled each other for weeks. Glances, brushes, silence that said more than words ever did. Until one fall into the grass. A kiss they couldn't take back. And the late night list that dared to make the days count. 23 days left. Not enough to hold forever, but enough to hold now. This chapter is the sound of crossing things off. Morning jogs and midnight tarts. Shirts swapped. Laughter spilling into the orchard. Small rebellions made sweeter because time is short. And then, the scissors. The haircut every boy dreads. The one that makes leaving real. Between jokes and quiet breaths. The truth cut closer than either of them planned. This is Beneath the Tangerine Trees, Chapter 6. The list lived. The list began at first light, before the orchard woke, before the fruit caught the sun. The path was cool, still wet with last night's rain, and the mist clung long along the rows. Han moved easily, shoulders loose, pace certain, like the ground itself belonged to his steps. Eugene kept close, not trying to win, not willing to fall away. Each breath marked in the air, each exhale visible before fading back into silence. Han lengthened his stride. Eugene followed. Not a race, not quite, but the kind of push that said, I see you, I'm still here. They didn't speak. Words would have broken it. Instead, the orchard carried them, branches arched above, dew falling from leaves with each shake of wind. Somewhere, a gull called once and was gone. The ground sloped. Han leaned forward, breast steady, shirt clinging to his back. Eugene matched, jaw set, a quiet sound caught between effort and something else. A laugh, maybe. Or just the sound of holding on. By the time they reached the rise beyond the trees, the sun had pulled itself into view. A pale circle, casting long shadows back into the orchard. They stopped together, hands braced on knees, breaths rising hard, then softening. No one said first line done. No one needed to. The orchard knew. The list had begun. After the run came the wash. Not the kind with steam. Not the kind that lingered. This one was simpler. A basin on the floor. A dipper. A body bent forward. Han said it was quicker this way. The way recruits did it. Forward wash. No time for comfort. Eugene leaned in, palms on his knees, hair falling toward the ground. Han tipped the dipper. Water spread across dark strands, over the curve of his neck, through fabric already clinging to skin. He made a small sound, half sputter, half laugh. Han smirked, but didn't stop. The dipper tipped again, faster this time, deliberate, playful. Eugene flinched, turned his head, but not fast enough. His sleeves caught the spray, his shoulder darkening in patches. It was no longer a wash. It was a fight. Eugene's hand shot out, caught the dipper, sent water spilling in return. Han blinked at the shock of it, then laughed. Bright, unguarded, the kind that filled the whole hut. They went back and forth, basin to dipper, dipper to air, air to floor. Each splash louder, each laugh breaking softer. The room was drenched in minutes, walls streaked, floor shining with puddles, clothes heavy on skin. Then it stopped, the dipper empty, the basin nearly drained. Only the sound of water sliding down walls. Han lowered the dipper, his smile still there, but smaller now, something else resting under it. Want to just do it? Eugene lifted his head, hair plastered across his face, drops tracing the line of his jaw. His eyes met Han's. No words, no refusal. Only the shift of silence, pulling them closer than any splash had. The game had burned itself out. What remained was something steadier. Bare shoulders, skin warmed beneath cold water. Two figures under the same stream. Nothing hidden, nothing rushed. The wash had changed. Not army, not quick, not forgettable. This one would stay, just closer. They stayed wrapped in towels, skin still cooling from the wash. The room smelled of damp clothes and soap, the air thick with steam that hadn't yet settled. Eugene reached first, his towel pressed lightly to Han's hair, rougher than it needed to be, but careful all the same. Han bent forward a little, letting him. His own towel hung loose across his shoulders, slipping whenever he moved. For a moment, the slip revealed more than it covered. Skin damp, the curve of a shoulder, the quiet that came with noticing. Eugene didn't say anything. He just kept drying Han's hair until the towel in his hand was heavier than when he'd begun. When he moved to the corner, he lifted their clothes, still dripping from the splash. "Give me your towel. I'll wash these out too." Han glanced over, one brow raised, but he loosened it. The towel slid from his waist, dropped into Eugene's hands. For a second, it left him bare. Eugene held the bundle against his chest. He just turned for the door, muttering something about laundry. The room stayed quiet after, only the soap dripped from the rafters. The faint creak of floorboards as Han moved. He crossed to the clothes chest, opened it, pulled out a fresh shirt, then paused. His hand brushed against one that wasn't his, orange, bright, even in the dim light. Han smiled to himself, slipping into the shirt, then reaching for another piece, orange briefs folded neatly at the bottom. They fit close, too close, but he didn't mind. Han was already dressed when Eugene came back, not in his own clothes, in orange instead. Shirt snug at the chest, briefs too bright to belong to him. Eugene stopped in the doorway, still bare from the laundry. For a second, the room held still, one half hidden, the other exposed. Nothing left to cover the silence. Han cracked first, Eugene followed. The sound caught on itself, awkward and bright, filling the small cabin more than words ever could. They weren't laughing at each other, not really, only at how close they already come and how little there was left to hide. Han reached back into the chest. This time he pulled out a folded polo, the pale beige one, and a clean pair of his own briefs. He crossed the room slowly, the boards creaking under his steps, and held them out. No words, just the offering. Eugene glanced once at the bundle, then at Han in his orange. The corner of his mouth lifted, a quiet exhale breaking through again. The trade was never even, not his shirt, not his skin. But in the silence that followed, they both knew, closer was enough. Han didn't answer with words. He only set the bundle of clothes in Eugene's hands, then turned toward the desk. The list was still there, edges curled, ink pressed heavy from the night before. He picked up the pen and without hesitation, crossed 3 lines through. Jog every morning, shower together, swap clothes for a day. Eugene stayed by the door, wearing Han's things. The polo hung loose. Han's scent clung faint at the collar. Watching Han in his, cut the mark straight through the list. The list wasn't finished, not even close, but 3 lines gone meant something more than paper. It meant the morning was already theirs. The orchard had ended heavy that day, basket filled, shoulders sore, hands raw from pulling fruits down. Most of the trees had already given themselves over. The rest would follow soon. The season was almost finished. But here, in the small kitchen, with one lamp and one bowl, the orchard still lingered. Chocolate whipped thick, zest folded in. The faint sting of citrus cut sharp through the sweetness. Scooped a spoonful, held it across the space. Eugene waited a moment too long, then leaned forward, lips closing around the cold metal. The mousse melted quick, sweet, bitter, bright with fruit at the end. He didn't speak, but the corner of his mouth curved, just enough. Han smirked back, dipped again, this time for himself. The mousse was too good to stop there, too soft, too sweet. Eugene reached across, dipped his finger into the mousse, lifted it slow to his own lips. The taste was darker this way, sweeter. The citrus cut sharper at the end. He dipped again. This time he didn't taste it himself. He held his hand down, fingers raised toward Han. Han hesitated, just a breath, just a glance at Eugene's eyes, then leaned in. His lips closed around the finger, soft, slow. The air shifted. Still sweet, still bitter, still citrus bright, but closer now. When Eugene lowered his hand, Han didn't move back. The space between them was already gone. What began as sweetness turned heavier, a kiss that deepened, slow, unrushed, but certain. The mousse would melt, it wouldn't last. But this would stay. The days had slipped away. What had been weeks was only days now. Barely a week left. The orchard thinning, the list thinning with it. The stool sat in the yard. Han held the scissors. Eugene lowered himself, hands caught too tight in his lap, eyes fixed on the ground. He had faced the orchard heat. He had carried baskets until his arms gave out. But this felt heavier. The sound was nothing, just metal closing, but it shook through him all the same. Another snip, another strand, each one lighter on his head, heavier in his chest. Eugene shifted once, as if to rise, but Han's hand came to his shoulders, steady, grounding, no words, only the quiet weight of his palm. Eugene swallowed hard, a pulse of shame already rising for something not yet finished. Hair slid down his neck, caught against his collar, fell in small piles at his feet. When it was done, Eugene raised a hand, felt a cut, short, uneven against his fingers. Not wrong, not bad, just bare. The shame came quick, hot against his skin. He turned his face away, eyes fixed anywhere but at Han. Han stepped around the stool, close now. Close enough that Eugene could feel his shadow fall over him. "You look cute," Han said. Eugene shook his head once, but the flush deepened. The shame pulled tight in his chest, until Han bent, pressed his lips to his forehead, and let them rest there. The orchard held its silence. The week ahead still waited. But for that moment, the shame eased, not gone, not yet. Only lighter, where Han's lips had been. The list was never about finishing. It was about the mornings that began in silence, the laughter that spilled in water, the sweetness of citrus folded into chocolate. And now, a week left, haircut. The orchard held them still, but the end was already near. This was Beneath the Tangerine Trees, Chapter 6. The list lived. Next time, the last chapter, where the orchard says its final goodbye. If you've been with us this far, thank you. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and like this episode to let us know what part stayed with you. Your support carries this story further than you know.